Welcome to the Retention Nation podcast, the show for e-commerce brands looking to turn one-time and sometime buyers into lifetime and forever customers. Hosted by Isaac Hyman, an ex-VP of Retention and featured speaker, author, masterclass creator, and founder of High Flyer Digital, each episode features successful brands, apps, and experts who are sharing cutting-edge, innovative, and proven email SMS retention insights that help them grow their business to the next level profitably. Our mission is to give you the retention strategies you need to unlock profitable, predictable, and scalable revenue from every customer on your list. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Retention Nation podcast, the podcast that teaches brands how to turn those one-time and sometime buyers into lifetime buyers and actually unlock the true revenue potential from every customer on your list and actually create profitable, predictable, and sustainable revenue streams from your business, which is something I think everyone wants to have. They want to have that consistency, profitability, and most importantly, one of the most interesting side of that is that the best way to acquire a customer is by getting an existing customer to buy more times. So retention is the focus of this podcast. If you're listening to this, highly recommend you don't just listen to the stories, but you actually absorb more through reading or watching. But I highly recommend you get a copy of my email and SMS retention playbook, Ultimate Email and SMS e-commerce playbook right here, 330 pages, where you can actually learn the strategies, the retention strategies of the top brands out there, and actually implement what you're learning on this podcast as we go. But to be honest, what you read in the book is one thing, but the best way to learn is by listening to the true experts who are doing it really well. So I want to introduce my special guest right here, Mehdi Farsi from State Bicycle, who's going to teach us a lot about how to do retention really well. Let me give a quick intro about his background because it's quite vast and quite fascinating. He's the co-founder of State Bicycle Company in Tempe, Arizona. They specialize in great looking, great riding bicycles, parts, and accessories that are both attractive and affordable. They sell their own brand of bikes, clothing, accessories, as well as a handful of curated complementary products directly on their website and within, I believe, over 400 bike shops worldwide. The business has grown to over $50 million in annual sales and produced over 100,000 bikes. Tell me, Mehdi, is there anything you haven't done yet? And maybe you could share with us your journey over the past 4 or 5 years and where you are right now with State Bicycle.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think you highlighted a lot of what we're doing at State Bicycle Company, but at the end of the day, the goal is to just get more people who might be sitting at home or doing other stuff off the couch and on the.
I'm sorry, what on their off the couch and onto a bike, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. That's really fascinating. And I know that the first topic on everyone's, at least in my mind, was that, we're about 4 years outside of the pandemic, right? And we had a previous podcast guest, Debbie Simmons from Bicycle Warehouse, who had mentioned that, the pandemic accelerated this e-commerce boost to biking and getting out and being active. How has that impacted your business from an acquisition side and then also from a retention side now that the pandemic is kind of dying down?
Yeah, so definitely 2020, 2021, we saw an influx of new people who were looking to get out on bikes during the pandemic. For in terms of customer acquisition, it was very, very easy to acquire customers at that time. Almost no effort needed to be put into our marketing and so forth. But as we kind of get through that, and now we're it's in the rearview mirror, we are always looking for ways to engage all that new ridership and kind of keep that momentum and keep that passion going. The number one thing that I hate to see is people buying a bike and then it's sitting in their garage and the tires are getting flat and it's collecting dust. So we try to always inspire our ridership, whether it's through our content, whether it's through new product releases, whether it's through tutorials and just tips and tricks on, how to improve your bike, improve your performance, and just have fun. So, we always have to be creative with it, and that's what we're looking to do.
That's huge. And it seems like there's a big community out there that wants to get that inspiration to get out there and bike more often, and even probably even get, I mean, in my case specifically, even get my kids out there and riding with them or their friends. You find the community building is a major part of this effort for retention?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, there's a lot of barriers to entry, when it comes to cycling. It's what type of bike do I have? Where do I ride? If I get a flat tire, what am I going to do? And being able to address all those concerns, remotely is always a challenge. That's why, building a community, and fostering that, uh, so that, it welcomes new riders in. I think that's really critical. I think, it's fun to ride solo, but it's always more fun in a group.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I know the group riders really kind of, I see them all the time. Some are, speed demons, and some, at least in my area, in the New York tri-state area, they're like almost a nuisance when you're having delivery bikers on deliveries. But that's just the nature of New York City. But it's great to see them coming together as a whole group. And Starter Store, you had mentioned that the product is pretty much everything. It's the tip of the spear. So, in your words, and to be honest, a lot of guests echo that sentiment. In your words, how has the product helped you not only acquire customers, but keep them loyal to State Bicycle?
Yeah, so I think our goal is always to produce products that, are not only affordable or attainable, and accessible, but also attractive. So I think there's tons of attainable, accessible bikes out there. You go into your Target, your Walmarts, et cetera, and you buy a bike, but it doesn't necessarily, do anything for the rider emotionally. It's not attractive, and so, again, it's that old story where someone buys a bike, they ride it around for a few weeks, and then it goes into the garage and it collects dust. We're trying to, make cycling as attractive and as appealing as possible to people, and that's, done with our, um, media. That's done with just the styling of the bikes and everything, so that when you see a state bicycle, like, we almost want you to feel like, oh man, I wish I wasn't, here on my phone. I wish I was like out riding that bike. So, the product is everything. We try to pack as much value, into a bike as possible, at whatever price point we're selling. We're very focused on $500 to $1,500. So, again, kind of where your Walmart, Targets, etc., leave off, and then before kind of your Trek and Specialized and kind of the legacy bike brands kind of start. We occupy that space in between, and I think a lot of people are looking for something that is, better than what you would see at a big box shop, and something you can kind of grow into. We don't pack the bike with all these features that you may or may not want. We try to, uh, engineer the product so that you can kind of get your foot into the door, at the lowest possible price, and then later on, if you know are riding a lot of mountains and you want to upgrade your wheels, or you want to upgrade, your saddle, or whatever the case may be, we have all those options available. So I think that is also one of the reasons why we have, such kind of a long tail with all of our customers. When they buy their state bicycle, maybe that's their initial purchase, but it's not going to be their final purchase, because part of the fun of having a bike is tinkering with it, making it yours, personalizing it until it like really, fits you perfectly.
That's great to soup up the bicycle a lot, to kind of give it your own little flair. It's very
Oh, go
interesting you
ahead.
said that because, in the I tend to work with a lot of photo, video, and consumer electronics brands. And one thing that they do is sometimes you buy a camera or sometimes you buy electronics that it's the beginner, but then you slowly grow up with the consumer, with the person, to become a beginner, intermediate, then advanced. And so that definitely helps us with retention. It sounds similar to what you guys are doing, go from one bike to the next level to the next level, right?
Yeah, I think it's very similar. I mean, not necessarily even all the modifications that you can do to a bike are performance based, right? Some are aesthetic. We have cool collaborations, we have fun projects all the time, and it's about personalization, whether it's from a performance standpoint or just from the aesthetics. But either way, if you're personalizing something, you're going to enjoy it more. If you enjoy it more and it invokes some kind of a positive emotion in you, you're going to ride more, and that's really what we're looking for.
Very similar to an iPhone, how it started, right? Really, the iPhone is anything, but like what the magic was and the personalization of your phone to yourself, all these cool little apps seems to be very similar. So that's pretty cool. Talk to me a little bit about your collaborations. I know you had one with Wu-Tang and The Simpsons. Are those more pure acquisition plays, or have you felt that that was also a retention play where you can get customers trying new products based on their affinity or something?
Both. So I think it's something that we find when the brands align well, and it's done well, it can be really powerful. So not only are we bringing in an audience, let's say a Beatles fan that wants a bike, we try to also partner with properties that we know our fan base pretty well, and we try to put ourselves in the consumer shoes and say, what can we make that will get people excited, and that's why when we do a collaboration, you'll see many different products within a collaboration more often than not, right? So we're not only trying to sell you the bike because maybe you bought a bike last week, maybe you have three bikes and you don't have room for another one, whatever the case is. So but you still want to participate in the collaboration, so that's why we always have apparel, accessories, saddles, all that sort of thing. So um you know everyone can enjoy, whether they already have a bike or if they're looking to get a bike. um yeah, so I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I think they're very, very successful on acquisition and retention.
That's great. And it seems like you guys are known for new arrivals too, using social and other channels to kind of drive that new collabs, new arrivals, new products, and new awareness at all times, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, we try to be kind of on, the forefront of what's current and what's fashionable in cycling. I mean, cycling is just like any other industry where there's trends.
Yeah.
It ebbs and flows from road cycling to mountain bike and gravel biking, and we try to be an attainable price point as well. I mean, I would almost say, we're the only fast fashion brand that's good for the planet.
That's good. Yeah, a lot of brands, fast fashion, terrible. No one wants it. Does not help, especially with Earth Day coming up soon. But good to hear that you're on that mission. In terms of,
Yeah.
post-pandemic, just along those lines, you know, it's died down, right? Are you finding that those one-time buyers have actually become repeat buyers? And what has been the secret to getting them to continue to thrive in terms of a tactical point of view, not just the brand, but let's say tactically, how'd you get them to continue to go purchasing from you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some people are just going to kind of fall off. I mean, some of it's lifestyle changes where someone might have assumed they're going to work from home forever, and then now they're back in the office 40 hours a week. So from that standpoint, there's only so much we can do. That said, I think that it did breed a whole new crop of writers, and our product lines have continued to mature along with the new ridership. So we always have something fresh and new, where if it's not a collaboration, it's some kind of upgrade or new line of bikes, new colorways. We're constantly engaging with folks, whether it's SMS lists, email lists. I mean, those are obviously huge for retention. Putting out content on our social media channels as well. So it's not anything necessarily different than what we were doing pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. That said, it's just a new crop of writers and maybe a larger pool to work with.
Yeah, you probably have a lot more data to work with. You can see trends much quicker and adapt to that even faster. So that's huge. That's huge to see. And so along those lines, with bikes, apparel, collabs, e-bikes, you name it, are you seeing different retention highs and lows depending on the products you're selling?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that of all the groups, the most dissimilar group to what we're traditionally used to working with are the e-bike segment.
Hmm.
Just because I don't know that those folks necessarily self-identify themselves as cyclists, and they're not necessarily like as committed to jumping in, I guess, both feet in the pool and becoming a cyclist per se. They might be getting bikes to just use for a particular use case, whether it's, going out with their kids or whatever the case may be. So we find that, those customers are a lot different than probably all the rest of our bikes in general, but it does change from customer from product line to product line to product line. So we have bikes that are $399 that are huge with college kids and everything, and that we have to figure out how to speak to those customers a lot differently than, the person who's buying the $1,500 gravel bike and they're getting ready to do their first 100-mile race. Those are totally different people.
Yeah.
We hope that that college kid becomes the gravel racer, in this case, but it's not always the case. So we do have kind of entry level products that bring people um, into our realm, and then we try to graduate them up. It's not dissimilar to our arc as a company, and even personally, like not dissimilar to how I was when, 15 years ago when we started the company and we were riding bikes in, vans and cut off jean shorts at midnight. And now, everyone
Wow.
I grew up riding with is waking up at 5 to go ride, you know, 80, 100 miles.
Yeah, that's talk about growing up there. That's huge. You went from like entry level to like consumer to prosumer and beyond. Now it's almost like it's part of your life.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And I guess it's funny. You mentioned before in the intro that I mentioned before in the intro that there was about 400 bike stores you sell in, if I'm not mistaken. Are you experiencing any positives from a retention point of view because you sell in all these locations, or you feel that those type of customers are buying from these retailers and a little more loyal to them? What's that perspective look like? How does that relationship look like?
I think customers bounce back and forth. So, I would imagine that there's a for there's people who buy the bikes, in the independently owned local bike shop, and then you know our catalog is huge, so it's just not even feasible for any shop. Even we had our own shop here in Phoenix, and they had like just this, even though it was right down the street, a very small selection of what we
Mm.
had online. So I would imagine, someone would buy the bike, and then there's a jersey that they like, and they come to the website and buy from us. And I think it works the other way around too. I think people maybe buy the bike from us online and then realize they need 10 different things to make the bike run better or whatever, and they're going into their shop. So it's kind of a holistic thing. We very much value our independent bike shop partners, and it's a different experience, and some customers want that peace of mind of going into the bike shop, and if anything's wrong they can take their bike in and get it serviced. They want to touch and feel the product. We understand it's a big purchase, so we find that to be a very key part of what we do. And yeah, I mean, I think whether they're purchasing from us or from the shops, it doesn't matter, as long as they're, getting on the road, uh, one way or another.
It seems like also a major key selling point to have these 400 literal locations they can go and touch, feel, try out the bike, prove it out, and see that this could be a good brand for you guys in perpetuity. So it's
I
probably a
think
good
I think
advantage there.
certainly, yeah, I think there's certainly some extra credibility to the brand, especially for people who might not be familiar with us. When you do have kind of those on the ground brick and mortar retailer to support. Certainly was pretty critical when we were first starting out for two reasons. I mean, even 2010, 2011, when we first started out, like making a large purchase on your online was like a little bit risky
Yeah.
still. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like uh kind of a silly thing because people order cars and everything else like from their phone, but you would never order anything from your phone. And if you were on a desktop, like even you wouldn't buy anything that was several $100s, definitely not several $1,000s. It was very, very rare. So that was more critical then.
Mhm.
Obviously, that was one thing I think that the pandemic, not just for us, but for all of e-commerce, like super like accelerated. Like people order
Interesting.
like I mean, people like will apply for a mortgage on their phone. You know what I'm saying? For hundreds of
My second
thousands of
home.
dollars or million. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
That's fascinating to hear that, and it just yeah, exactly. It accelerated a lot of things, but it's interesting how you say that accelerate the price points that people are willing to spend online. Very fascinating. So one thing that actually, I know we talked about the good news with e-bikes and the good news about biking in general. There's obviously some bad news out there when you hear about batteries catching fire and things like that. Obviously, these type of things, just like the Teslas that were, their batteries were lying dead in the middle of winter apparently because of the cold, and then maybe you guys, Arizona, has maybe heat waves more. So, how do
Sure.
you deal with like bad news out there, and how does that affect your retention rates? Considering it's not really something that has to do with state bicycle, it's not really in your control. Like, how do you manage that?
Well, I mean, I think again, like when we talk about some of the stuff that's going on with e-bikes, we really look at that as like almost its own like separate part of the business or a separate entity. Fortunately for us, we're not like an e-bike specific company. We didn't start out selling e-bikes, and when we sell e-bikes, it's kind of like cherry on top, but not something we're kind of retooling the business to just focus on those customers. I think long term, some of this like hardship is going to be good for the industry. It's going to get rid of, some of the people who are, just trying to make a quick buck or fly by night companies, et cetera. And I think there does need to be some change.
Yeah,
Ultimately, like you can't have people out there selling unreliable, unsafe products. The other side of that business is again during the pandemic, like a lot of venture capital money, private equity money came in, and they just like gave so
yeah,
much money to the e-bike companies. For whatever reason, they thought like, for the foreseeable future, people are just gonna keep buying e-bikes forever and ever and ever at like a crazy rate. Um, and those companies took on a lot of debt. They took on a lot of money with strings attached. They
yeah,
bought way too many bikes, and then they kind of flooded the market. And uh, not so much this year, but definitely last year, I was seeing prices on e-bikes where I'm like, I know these people aren't making money on this. Like, there's no chance, especially once you factor in customer acquisition, which again for e-bike is much higher because you're targeting like a broad base of
oh yeah,
people. So again, I think that's going to be good that a lot of that will shake out, and hopefully, the companies that are committed to quality and kind of uh, not making a quick buck stand tall after it all. That said, I mean, e-bikes aren't necessarily like the focal point of our roadmap long term. I mean, they're nice to be able to offer, but we think that we can add more to the conversation elsewhere.
Yeah, it seems like your core competency is the main bikes and having that loyalty around that. And like you said, cherry on top. So it's interesting how you said that also. That seems like these brands have really the pandemic accelerated, but then they also quickly decelerated after the pandemic. So that's got to be challenging for them. And I'm glad to see you guys are in an even better place than those brands probably are.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who, in terms of companies, acted like very short-sightedly. That's kind of me being nice about it. I could be not nice about it and give
We'll
my
do that
opinion, but
offline.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, I mean, it was short-sightedness at best.
Yeah.
But again, like I mean, these are some big brands that are mostly sold through bike shops, and they're
Yeah.
cutting MSRPs, putting dealers in a bad spot. Still,
Mm.
when you work with a legacy brand as a bike shop, you're committed to spending six figures annually with them, if not more, just to maintain your account. And when they're slashing prices and there's a surplus, and then you're still expected to buy the next model year's worth of bikes, it puts a lot of bike shops in a bad place, and that's kind of the ugly side of what happened post pandemic to a
Wow.
lot of the industry.
Wow. Thanks for the behind the scenes look. Yeah, it seems like a pretty big struggle if you're in that space especially as a retailer.
Yeah,
Hopefully they're figuring that out and leveling off by now. In terms of just one main final question I had was that you mentioned before you're well, really in biking you're meant to get out there as a group and ride by yourself, but then also join groups and communities. Have you ever done anything that's specifically along bringing those customers that are loyal to you and bringing them into some sort of community effort offline and create
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
a group
definitely.
ridership or anything? Yeah, how's that working?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially like when we were first getting started out, I mean, that's like basically how we got word out of on the company. We were attending all kinds of events, throwing our own events, like basically like a party on wheels, making what we were doing as exciting and as attractive as possible, and throwing it up on Facebook, which was kind of the only social media at the time, and just getting eyes on this. Like we were a lot different than that group ride that you mentioned that you
Yeah.
see at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning here when it gets hot. Like we weren't wearing lycra, we were doing things differently. It was all younger people, and it looked like a good time. It looked a little bit counterculture, and that's kind of how we started. I mean, we still try to host events when we can. They're fewer and further between, but just due to bandwidth. But 'cause it's a lot of work to put on like a
Yeah.
nice event. But the other way we support is we probably sponsor. I would I would think of 300 events every year. So
Wow.
these are maybe small groups similar to like what we were doing back in the day that need prizes for a race, or um, raffle items, et cetera. And we're sending bikes, we're sending shirts, we're sending merch all over the country, cash. Sometimes we, again, if we can't support an event, like and produce it ourselves, we'll pay for it to get produced. If someone has a great idea, like just last month, we bought out the entire field of a fixed gear race, which is kind of the entry level bike. So we paid. They had 75 spots. We paid for all 75 spots so people could race for free because we just wanted to see 75 riders lined up. So we do stuff like that all the time, and that's a great way to engage folks. We also have ambassadors. We have our sponsored riders who are not only going to races and events, but they're on the group rides, Monday through Friday, uh, answering questions about the bikes, etc. So I myself am out on the road all the time, and if anyone kind of flags me down and wants to talk bikes, like I'm more than happy. So it's very much uh, both an effort in the digital world, but ultimately our product to be enjoyed in the real world. So we're out there enjoying them too.
Wow, so it sounds like you have a really great boots on the ground strategy, or should we say wheels on the road strategy, to
Yeah,
address those type
exactly.
of customers. Really, really impressive. I know we're almost out of time, so I want to ask: is there any one tip or retention hack or thing that our listeners could implement? You'd say right away that would give them a decent impact on their retention strategies. Um, any thoughts on that? Any tips on that?
I mean, I think you need to put yourself in kind of the consumer shoes and ask yourselves the questions that they're going to be asking. So whatever you're selling, I mean, we sell a durable good. Like you would think, like we shouldn't have a lot of repeat purchases, but there's add-ons, there's questions, there's service, there's a lot of opportunities to engage with the customer and basically answer any reservations or challenges they may have and provide solutions. So I think that's probably my best piece of advice when it comes to retaining someone. Give them a reason on why they should be retained, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to be transactional. You want to be there as kind of a source of knowledge for whatever world you're operating in.
That's great. Yeah, help them adopt the product, help them adopt the bike, and maximize the value of it consistently seems to be the best approach. And that's very easy. Almost anyone could do that. So good tip.
Definitely.
What would be the next steps for our listeners if they want to learn more about you or State Bicycle? And where they can go
Yeah, they
next?
can. Yeah, visit our website to see the product catalog. It's statebicycle.com. And then we're always active on social, primarily Instagram. So at State Bicycle Co. is our Instagram handle. We have some great products launching this spring and summer. So definitely stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, Mehdi, this has been great talking to you. I know this is the busy season coming up, so thanks for dedicating a little bit of your time to talk to our listeners all about retention. I hope our listeners, learned a lot about retention from a brand that's doing it really well, both online and offline. And it's been great having you as a guest. And for those listening, hope you got some value out of this episode. It's been great teaching you guys how some of the top brands are doing their retention and turning those one-time and sometime buyers into lifetime buyers using retention strategies that are innovative and unique. So once again, Mehdi, thank you for being here. And for those listening, we'll see you on the next one.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Retention Nation podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and join our Retention Nation Facebook group. If you want to put this week's retention strategy into action within minutes, all done for you by our expert email, SMS, and retention team, you can go to highflyerdigital.com/book for a free 15-minute chat with myself and my team. It's time to turn those one-time and sometime buyers on your list into lifetime buyers and unlock the revenue you deserve. Your brand is worth it, and your customers will thank you for it. Until next week, I'm Isaac Hyman, wishing you a successful and profitable week.